Can I just do mute?
Live stream.
Or,
Live stream.
okay.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, G.
Ken, I've been good today, all day. I got to 6 o'clock.
I'm gonna need to see some kind of certified letter saying you've been good all day long.
I know,
Ma'am,
They don't
At the
sound.
very least, notarized.
That's right.
right? I'm trying to make it to the end of the year.
You know, one day at a time.
Oh, being good.
Just got one day. All we get is one day at a time. Just do the best you can. That's my thing. Do the best I can every
I don't
day.
know about tomorrow, but today.
Today, that's all you gotta worry about. Don't worry about that. I tell them, I do that all the time. Sometimes I gotta start over. I'll be like, let me try again.
Probably.
I can resend one. Hang on just a minute. You can use the same one, but it still should, you should still be getting new ones. So just
Spit it out. That was email.
check now, Jen. You are welcome. Those links are all custom to each council.
It's all right. One day. Just one day at a time. You ain't got to explain nothing. You got to explain nothing to nobody. You gotta- You gotta explain to nobody. I'm just saying. Hey, you said what you felt like. You said what you felt like saying. You know? Mhm.
Oh, no, what's happening now? Yeah. Who's starting it? Who's starting the meeting? Huh? Go ahead and start it, Karen. Got it? Now, let me get this thing rolling. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our Tuesday, September the 7th agenda session. And I'll call this meeting to order. Could I get a motion on the minutes, please? All right, we have a motion on the minutes with a proper second. There's no objections. The minutes will stand as recorded. Madam Clerk, if you would read item 6A, please.
An ordinance hearing after, also known as the fiscal year 2021-2022 operations budget, providing revenue for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2021 and ending June 30, 2022, appropriating same to the payment of expenses of the municipal government, fixing the rate of taxation on all taxable property in the city and the time taxes and privileges are due, how they shall be paid, when they shall become delinquent, providing for interest and penalty on delinquent taxes and privileges, amending Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 2, Section 2267, relative to paid leave for active duty training, and to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 31, Section 3136, 3137, 3141, and 3143, Sections 31322 and 31354, and to accept and appropriate federal funds for the fiscal year activities from the state and local fiscal recovery funds provided in American Rescue Plan Act.
Go ahead and read B while you're at it, please.
An ordinance appropriating, authorizing, or allocating funds to the capital improvement budgets for the fiscal year 2021 to 2022.
All right. I don't know that there's any questions at this time on the actual budget itself. I did propose or present an amendment to the budget last week that has garnered quite a bit of attention, apparently. We did have some questions, I think, last week regarding LDO and the staffing and what staffing levels were there, what enforcements that they had. So I've asked Dallas Rucker, the director of LDO, to be with us here this afternoon. Dallas, do you mind coming up and maybe just answer? I guess we just now started recording.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for being here today, Dallas. Okay, we're starting to get an echo back here. Are we good yet? Huh? Okay. Dallas, I guess it was our first education session. You came and was talking about being basically understaffed. And I think this council had presented or passed some legislation, a tree ordinance that conversations with you, you said that you really didn't have a position or a person to be able to even enforce that. Could you, I guess, speak just a little bit? And part of my amendment that I had proposed last week was taking some funding from the signal centers and moving it over to LDO for an enforcement person. Could you just speak just a little bit about your, I guess, staffing situation, whether you're able to even enforce the tree ordinance that we passed, I guess, maybe a year ago now? Just speak to some of that. Maybe council have questions for you following that.
Yes, sir. You had asked me to speak to that. I believe it actually went in effect this July, but it was part of the steep slopes conversation we'd had before. And what we were going to do to try to make some of the slopes more stable through the tree ordinance.
That's right.
Well, there is a review that needs to go through that process. There is a review process that needs to take place. And then the enforcement of making sure those trees get planted. Currently, right now, with stormwater load that they have and the amount of development going on, we currently do not have anybody that can enforce that. We've been talking about how we're going to fit it in, and I think you guys have had some concerns about the stormwater enforcement as it is.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Is it a matter of staffing or staffing positions? You just don't have the, I guess, the funding to provide somebody to enforce that.
I don't understand everything about the funding as the stormwater, as we added this to stormwater, and that's an enterprise fund, how that fund could work to add positions or position. I don't understand that. I mean, I don't understand everything I know about that. I just know that we have this much money for this many positions.
Well, I guess that's what I'm asking. Do you have enough positions funded, or are you a position short of funding?
I'm at least that position short.
You're that position short of
Yes,
funding?
sir.
Okay. And do you have any way to fundraise, to raise money for that position?
I do not know.
Okay. Basically, your funding is dependent on what this council does.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Councilman Ledford?
Thank you, Chairman. That just popped in a question for Dallas. Is that position funded or just does not exist?
I do not know that it exists. We
Okay,
have one position that's open for a regular inspector, as Jamal Bass got promoted. Jeremy became the site review manager. Jamal became the supervisor of stormwater. And so we have a position open for another stormwater. We got the city divided into 5 areas. We're short an inspector there right now. And then we were just, didn't know how we were going to enforce the,
when you say short, you.
we have 4 working 5 areas. The position is there, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
That's
sir.
what
But
I was
the enforcement of the
Okay.
steep slope tree ordinance.
Yeah, that's a really good ordinance to enforce too.
Well, I
Thank you, Chair.
believe you were very instrumental in that, Councilman.
Councilwoman Hill?
Thank you. Okay, so Dallas. My understanding is that your department has been running low on people. You have open positions budgeted, but not filled. You have not, the LDO has not been allowed to fill open positions. Is that correct?
We were not. We were asked to hold them during COVID. They have been opened up. This administration has
so-
opened
So
those
that's
positions
part
up.
of it. That's not so much funding as it is being allowed to use
Right.
the budget that you have. Okay.
But ma'am,
Yes.
those positions do not work in the stormwater area. They work in the building code enforcement area.
So what I heard you just say to Councilman Ledford is that you have a position open for stormwater, you just haven't hired for it? But then it sounded like you told Henderson
Correct.
you don't have anybody for it, nor do you have any money budgeted. for it.
Okay, that is to meet our current general stormwater erosion control. We don't have anybody to work the landscaping, steep slopes, tree ordinance.
But you do have a stormwater inspector budgeted within your
Right,
department.
and that's what we will fill the area of town that doesn't have an inspector in it right now. Well, we're just changing over, or we're covering for each other.
Okay, so there is a stormwater inspector. For what area of town are you hiring for?
I'm sorry, I don't know right off the top of my head because everybody's just been covering in different areas. We have 5 inspectors that work erosion control, sediment, work site development. We have a manager of those inspectors. And then we have a site coordinator.
Okay. Okay. And you're down 1 erosion control / sediment
Yes.
/
Yes, ma'am.
work site development inspector.
Yes, ma'am.
You're okay, down by 1. And that's the one you're hiring for.
That is the position we're currently
Okay.
searching.
Okay.
Got the job open.
Okay. That's what I have for now.
I'm sorry.
That's all I have for
Okay.
now.
So Dallas, I want to make sure I understand, even if you filled the stormwater position, you would still be a position short on enforcing the tree ordinance.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you don't have the funding for that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, all right. All right, I don't see any other questions at this time relating to stormwater and enforcement. And I think, and no, I'm sure we'll have discussions on down the road about enforcement, but that'll come later after the budget.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Dallas. Let me just talk a little bit about the other side of this coin. And I don't know how many of the council are aware of how Baby University even got started. That was a program that Stacy Richardson under the Burke administration brought to this council and asked for funding about 2016. At that time, it was about $250,000. That program identified expectant moms that were in danger of having low birth weight babies in a very targeted, specific, about 4 zip code area. And by the way, I supported that program. I supported funding that for $250,000. Because of Ms. Richardson's involvement in this program, it quickly ballooned to about $750,000 program. One of the things that I was a little bit disturbed about is when we ask about some questions about what they were doing now, the program seemed to balloon to the point that we were now expanding the service area, not just to those targeted zip code areas, but to a family that we were all shown pictures of that had the mayor and state representative of East Ridge standing behind them. And that concerns me because we're asking our taxpayers, the citizens of Chattanooga, to fund this program. The mayor's administration saw fit, I think, to cut this program about $150,000. By the way, Chief, come up just a minute. And I'll be honest with you, looking out into the audience and looking at my inbox of emails, and I'm sure all of y'all are the same way. It reminds me of what my granddaddy used to say is, this is the tail wagging the dog. When an agency comes to us and says, you can't cut our funding, I begin to question that. And I think all of our agencies need to be put on notice. Just because we fund you this year doesn't mean we're going to fund you next year. And you need to come to us and explain why you still need the funding that you need and why you haven't raised the money to do what you say you need to do, independent from this council. When we start shifting money from, one place to the other, I'm certain that our job on this council is to make sure that we supply essential services to the citizens of this community. I think stormwater is one of those essential services. I completely support making sure that mothers have the funding that they need to make sure that their babies are not underweight. I know how critical that is for a child to be ready to start kindergarten. Personally, I think we can still do that with $450,000. And maybe if they can't do it with $450,000, maybe we need to find somebody else that can. Chief, what is the long-range plan in the administration for maybe not only this agency, but other agencies as we begin to look at what they do and what they provide and what we can expect for this city to fund?
So I think, as I mentioned, I think last week or the week before, I do believe we've come to a moment in time when nonprofits should not expect us to just provide funding every year just because we've funded in the past. I think we're going to have a much more robust process going forward about how we decide what kind of funding is given to nonprofits based on what sort of services they provide. I also think we're going to take a hard look at separating nonprofit agencies into buckets. So, for example, nonprofit agencies who are providing a critical function of the government, instead of going through the whole appropriation process, I would much prefer that we contract them through a department So McCamey is a good example of this type of funding because we have a contract through the police department and they provide animal services for our police department, which we would have to provide if we did not contract that out. So I think there's those types of services where we're choosing to contract something out to a nonprofit for a very specific reason. Otherwise, I think we have the bucket of appropriations to nonprofit agencies, and we're going to have a much more robust process to determine what funding goes to nonprofits. And we also want to make sure, as you mentioned, that we are covering all the basic city services before we do anything else.
Thank you, Chief. I have no lights, so maybe nobody has any questions for you. It looks like we're quiet as church mouse up here today. Now we got some. Hold on just a minute. Councilwoman Dotley.
I just wanted to just formally make a statement about Baby University. I believe they're an invaluable program for our city and the impact to the families lasts a lifetime. So I am in support of that program and continue funding of the program. I would like to see more diversity and a greater reach beyond their 4 focus zip codes. So I am in support of that. In regards to the amendment, will we be voting on it separately or as one with the current proposal here in the agenda?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I
the-
understand your
You
question.
presented an amendment to the current budget, to the proposed budget?
Well,
Is that correct? The
I
single center
submitted a proposed amendment
amendment, okay.
to the proposed budget. I'll be honest. I don't like to see this council divided. I do want to see us in total 100 support of the budget, 100% support of the budget. So I guess I'm still debating at this point as to whether to bring this amendment forward or not.
Okay.
I do want to make sure that we make the best decision that we can make for the citizens of Chattanooga.
Thank you. That's all I had to say.
Thank you. Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. I want to make sure I choose my words carefully because I get very passionate about this kind of stuff because I see the value and what Baby University, what it brings. And especially myself, because I was a teen mom. And I understand the obstacles that teenagers as parents, what they endure, and having a support system, a strong support system. A lot of times the zip codes that they serve don't have that support system. And making sure that those families are having the services that they need in order for them, to finish school. It's an economic impact for our city, most definitely. I do get that we're kind of looking at a different direction, and I know a lot of people love animals like they love kids. And I think that statement, it could have been kept because you can't compare the services of what Baby U is gonna offer to citizens of Chattanooga for them to be successful in life and compare that to the services that McCamey can offer for animals. Like it's no comparison at all. If anything, I would rather McCamey not be funded. And I think that we, now isn't the time to say they shouldn't get funding because we want to look at it totally different now, when we should be having those conversations now moving forward to say in the future that this is going to be the route that we're going to and not at the last minute. They have been cut down 150,000 and to cut them down even more, I just think that's unnecessary, especially to get a position that we already have a position. And all throughout the city, we're talking about people not even applying for jobs right now. So we don't even know if funding that position, if it's gonna, move for somebody to apply for that job to plant trees when we can use the person that's already been doing that. Or look in other departments, how we've already traditionally been doing is using people that's working in other areas. And we need to, just look, I hear you, Chip. I just don't agree with it. I mean, my heart wouldn't even allow me to move in that direction. I think we should be more proactive in how the future look with this organization. I most definitely agree with Councilwoman Dotley that I would like to see other additional zip codes added to it. Because what I'm seeing now, When I walk into the WIC office, when I go to my doctor's office, it's more now than just Black and brown teenage mothers and fathers. We do have poor white kids that need to be serviced as well. And I would love to see that happen so we can address it in a holistic way, how they can service the entire Chattanooga.
Councilman Hester.
Thank you, Chairman. I've looked at some statistic. It says 20% of all the kids are ill prepared for kindergarten in Hampden County. So we're behind the eight ball. We find that the brain develops 80% before you're 2 years old, 80%. So all these kids are behind when they come into the world. And my belief is that learning begins while the child is still in the womb. So I think that Baby University is very vital for our community. If we want to cut or to dismantle the pipeline from school to prison, it starts with Baby University. So I'm in support of Baby University and monies for to continue Baby University. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Byrd.
Thank you, Chair. Dallas, can I talk to you for a second? Quick question. What the proposed amendment to get the other employee for the city to work, like, let me ask you, do we have a person qualified already?
I don't know about the amendment. I was asked to talk about the.
Oh, you don't know about the amendment?
I don't know about the amendment. I was asked to talk about the position.
Understood.
That was needed, right? This is not somebody that plants the trees. This is somebody to make sure the contractors plant the trees, and there's formulas within there they have to go through.
Okay.
Decide the slope and how many trees are needed and that kind of stuff. So
Do we have a person qualified for that already? Or we will have to look for it?
we would probably our landscape reviewer would be qualified for that.
Okay.
But she's having trouble getting all the stuff she has done now
Understood.
completed, so we can move projects along.
Understood. Thank you.
So, yes, sir.
All right. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Brent, can I ask you a question? And I don't know if this and probably you too, Chip, this amendment to reappropriate the money from signal centers, is this voted on as the budget as a whole? And I think I heard Ms. Dottley ask that question, but I don't think it was answered. Or would this amendment be in the budget for us to vote when we vote for this budget?
I'll defer to the chair.
Yeah, let me,
Okay.
so this would be the process. Somebody would make a motion to approve the budget
Okay.
and then get a proper second. And then an amendment would be presented at that time with a proper second. Then we would vote on the amendment. And if it was approved, then we would have a motion to approve the budget as amended. If the motion for the amendment failed, then we would just vote on the budget as it's presented.
As it was presented. All right. All right. Okay. All right.
You good?
I'm
Are
good.
you okay,
Yeah. It's, okay.
thank you. Councilwoman Hill.
Thank you, Chair. I have, this amendment has been a really fascinating pairing of two very important issues. I mean, you all know how deeply I am committed to improving education in Hamilton County, and I hope that you will you will come to know how much I care about educating children specifically in Chattanooga. Isaiah, you said 20% ready for kindergarten. Actually, only 40% of our children are ready for kindergarten day one. So it's not 80% that are ready, it's 60% that are ready. That's thousands of children. And putting these two issues together, neither are in a perfect position in my mind. Doing the math, if we've got thousands of children in Chattanooga who are not ready for kindergarten day one. In 2022, so far, Baby University has served 188 families. And that was, let's do the 2021, because in 2021, they had $700,000 of city funding divided by 193 families. So at a cost of $3,626 per family. We've seen that not all the families live in Chattanooga for the entirety of their service. We don't know if those families have carried from one year to the next, given that intense case management, may serve a mother who's pregnant, but also may serve other children who are older. So there are certainly some questions. It's not a perfect correlation. And when we look at, 80% of children ready for kindergarten, well, when you're serving 188 families a year, is that 20 kids that are ready for kindergarten out of thousands of children who are not ready for kindergarten? And we're investing $700,000 a year in the prior year's budget for this. For me, there are no untouchable issues or questions. Like there's no sacred cow for me, right? Like, because I support education doesn't mean I support every program always having 100% of the funding that it had the year before or growing that funding. I'm always looking at what's our impact. And on the other side of this coin, for me, as a representative of District 2, I have families whose garages are literally washing away. I have families whose basements used to be dry and they're literally flooding every time it rains because the way their neighbors are not responsible for handling their stormwater. So it's a very real issue in places where we have steep slopes and frankly, where we've had less than forward-thinking stormwater management. But as I hear our administrator talk, I'm not convinced that throwing more money toward a position right now is the right thing either, because I'm hearing a lot of, I don't know. And when I hear, I don't know, putting more money there doesn't make me feel real comfortable either. Brent has talked about how as a administration, they like to look at what are all their processes and make sure their processes are running smoothly within the departments. Then look at the policy that we, as a council, can create to support the work that they're doing. And then finally, people, I am pretty conservative when it comes to how I'm going to spend $1. And if it's not my dollar, I'm even more conservative. So I don't know that every penny at Baby University is the right penny to be there. But I also am not totally convinced, Mr. Chair, that the LDO is quite ready for another position when there's a lot of I don't know about the positions that they have. This is definitely a tough one. And both of them are things that we as a city have desperate need for. I'm glad that you brought it to us because we need to have conversations like this. Thank you. That's all.
Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if anybody mentioned also what they do is they do in-home visits. And I know Lachey previously worked there, like she was on the ground, very instrumental in the startup with that program with Baby U as well. But I do have a question. If somebody could answer it? I know at one point we had Family Connect here with City of Chattanooga. What's the difference with what Family Connect done and what Baby U is doing now?
Chief or Jody, y'all want to take a stab at that?
Just to make sure I'm understanding your question, could you repeat it really quickly?
Family Connect. We once were doing it, I think it was under area at one point. I'm not sure if we still do Family Connect, which is kind of similar to what Baby U was kind of doing, or it may be a little different. I just want to understand, like, what's the difference? If we still have Family Connect, what's the difference in what we're doing and the services what Baby U provides?
I'm actually not sure. I'd have to go back and look at that. Brent, do you? I'm not certain.
Okay. Would you know, Ms. Donna, what the difference?
Sure.
I'm Donna McConaughey, the CEO at Signal Centers, and Family Connects was through the Office of Early Learning, and it was dealing with childcare. So it was reaching out to childcares to help them connect. And so that was, I think it may have been part of the Pritzker grant. Is that has been carried on a little bit. And Caritza Mosley, some of you know her, was working with that program as well. But they didn't do in-home intensive case management. What they did was they worked with childcare providers to give them information.
Okay, so if the funding was to get cut, I don't know how council plans to vote, but if it was to get cut, would you be able to manage the services all that Baby U provides?
No, you almost had it to the penny. We did a cost per family is about $3,500, and a cost per individual is about $900, because most of our families have multiple. But for $100,000 less, we'll be serving 35 fewer families and 93 fewer family members. We already raise about 125,000 private dollars in grants every year. I don't see any way we can absorb that into fundraising for this program. When the program started, Council Chair Henderson, the city gained a match from Blue Cross. So the budget that we received was actually 500,000. But 250 came from Blue Cross. They said they do it for 2 or 3 years. I can't remember which. And that's what they did.
Well, thank you for explaining it, but I do, Chair, want to just add to the points that Councilwoman Hill made was great, but I also think that one organization can't take on the whole school system or to make sure that kids are ready to enter kindergarten. If that's the case, we need to hold every organization that we fund accountable to things. I do believe that it is the parents need to have buy-in during their children educational opportunities. It's not the responsibility. We provide a service and government and schools do, but if you don't have parents that's willing to help with that kid, yeah, that's what we need. And we need to start championing that. It's no money in the world that's going to guarantee that every child is ready for school if the parent isn't helping, if the parent isn't reading to them, if they're not helping them with their homework, if they're not helping them write, if they're not educating them as well. And we fail to do that on our end, and we always champion that it's the responsibility of government and organization. And I refuse to be grouped into that box because it's not their responsibility. But I do appreciate everything that Baby U, what you are doing, what you are able to do with the population that you do serve. And, hopefully the council will move in the right direction so you can continue to provide those services.
All right, thank you, Council. I'm not seeing any other lights, and I do appreciate the debate that we've had up here today. What we hope is that we come to the best decision for all of our constituents in this city. And Councilwoman, you said something that I totally agree with you, that we need to hold every agency accountable. If we give them $1, we need to hold them accountable. And Councilwoman Hill, I think as the committee chair of education, I think we need to start taking a look at all the agencies that we give money to in the name of education so that we can begin tracking and keeping up with all of these agencies. I'm all for spending $1 if it gets a kid ready to start kindergarten. I'm all for that. And I've never said I was opposed to Baby University. I completely support making sure that these moms that are in danger of having low birth weight babies I'm completely in support of that program. Can we do it for 450,000? I think we can. I think these agencies need to be put on notice though as well. They can't expect funding from one year to the next just because they got it to the prior year. But we do need to hold all of our agencies accountable. Councilwoman, I agree completely with that. All right, I'm seeing no other lights for the amendment or for the budget. And so we'll move on at this time under resolutions. Madam Clerk, 7A, please.
A resolution considering short-term vacation rental application number 21 STVR 123 for property located at 432 Harper Street.
All right, and we'll discuss this further during our council meeting later today. 7B, please.
A resolution considering short-term vacation rental application number 21 STVR 124 for property located at 208 Baker Street.
Councilwoman Hill, anything? All right. Council, if you would look at your purchasing questions for this afternoon, your purchase items, I should say. Let me know if you have any questions concerning these items. Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. Can we, I know we voted on this SEI security last week. Can we take that off here?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
I'm sorry.
The SEI, we voted on that not to approve the contract with them, but it's saying for them to provide security service for one of the hotels,
Yeah.
which is Super 8. I'm gonna do Super 8, not have security at their hotel. Is it just, are we targeting just the homeless people we're housing there? Or they, are we able to contract this with another security firm? Or
That's actually what I came up here to talk about.
Well,
Perfect.
tell us what you know.
So I would ask the council to please approve this purchase to include SEI in the contract with the non-congregate homeless shelter and the 2 hotels. When we did the RFP for this, we brought the hotels that won the bid for approval, which were approved. We did notify council that we were still working on the security portion, which is required as part of the RFP, and the hotel owners, they need the security there in order to participate, and we need them to participate. So the bid came back and SCI was the, I believe, the only bidder. They were the only bidder, right? I think. So we are asking that you approve this. It's totally separate from the citywide contract for security services. This is just for security at the hotels that we are using for non-congregate homeless shelter. If we do not approve, if council does not approve SCI for this, we will likely have to remove all those people from the hotels and start the entire process over again.
You good? You good, Councilwoman?
yeah, I got a
Huh?
question though about the congregate hotel.
Could you pull your microphone down, please?
Previously with the council, we had approved for us to purchase a hotel. Do you know where we're at in that? Tyler, he was working on that. He and Donna Williams, they're no longer here. But we had approved for that to happen. I brought it up a couple of times before. So where are we at in that process?
So we're currently exploring that option. We're currently going through the due diligence process to look at potentially adding supportive housing capacity or some form of hotel rooms to the city. We had CDBG money provided that I believe the previous administration came to this council to discuss or approve. We also, since then, obviously have American Rescue Plan dollars, and that, I will be very frank, is something that we are seriously considering.
Okay, because I know we already had it budgeted to purchase already. So like what you're
Right.
saying, something.
So it was through our CDBG dollars. And so those dollars, if we weren't to use them for the hotel piece, we could use ARP instead. Those CDBG dollars would be potentially freed up for other things, which is a more flexible funding source. So we're currently exploring what bucket of money best suits that purpose. But I will say very clearly that we are seriously considering moving forward with the hotel purchase.
Okay, thank you. And then one last request, I would like for this one with the police chief, research firm, if we can separate that when we vote on the purchases tonight.
Tonight?
Uh-huh.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you for making us aware of that at this time. Councilman Byrd, you got any tricks? No. What, your lights on? Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
And I'm seeing no other lights on our purchase questions. Council, if you would look ahead to your September the 14th agenda and let me know if there's anything on your September 14th agenda. And while we're here, Judge Patty, thank you for being here today. And I want to apologize. I got my dates mixed up as to what day I was asking you to be here. We're looking at the proposal for eliminating the second division on the 21st, which means that we would be talking about, we could talk about that next week on our agenda. I'm going to ask, is there any way you might be able to come back next week and answer questions about some of the council up here had questions about Division 1, Division 2 caseloads and things like that. I think we were planning on having that discussion next week, and I think I told you this week. Would you? It would. Yeah. Okay. That was my fault or my mistake. I don't know that we're ready as a council to address that issue at this time. Councilman Ledford, hold on one second. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Chairman. I was just going to make a suggestion that if maybe the judge would check her schedule, we could work around her schedule since we've had this mishap today.
Yeah. Just let us know. And I apologize. Well, we could push it a week. Let me get with you after this and we'll see what we can work out. Thank you. Thank you, council. Any questions about next week's agenda, September 14th? Councilwoman Hill.
Thank you, Chair. Under Community Development, Resolution 7B, I would like some information, please, about the Impact Workforce Initiative.
Yeah.
If you guys could tell us some about that and
Yes.
how these partners are going to be working together.
Yes, happy to talk about it. Jermaine Freeman from Economic Development. So this is actually a workforce development initiative in which our Office of Family Empowerment will be working with several external agencies to provide Google IT certification skills for individuals who have been displaced because of COVID-19, displaced from their jobs, excuse me. So this is funding, this is federal funding that is routed to the city through the Department of Human Services. And the stipulation with this funding is that in addition to people obviously being able to prove a certain level of poverty, which is in line with all of the CSBG funding that goes along with the Department of Human Services, they must also demonstrate that they were either displaced from their jobs or that they were downgraded from full-time to part-time because of COVID-19. And so this program would basically allow the Office of Family Empowerment, along with the Enterprise Center in Chattanooga State, to work on providing those Google IT certification courses to 30 individuals who would go through the program.
So, okay. Any other questions concerning September the 14th? If not, future considerations, anything on our future considerations that needs to come before the council at this time that you're not ready to roll onto our 2-week agenda? All right. I see no lights. coming to proposed legislation. Is there any legislation that anyone on the council needs to present at this time before the council? Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I had my schedule mixed up too, so I thought we was gonna be discussing the city court ordinance. So I asked Ms. Nicole to circulate the ordinance about the judges' pay. So we can include that in the conversation too as well. So I think she's already sent it to everybody's email if you don't
Okay.
have it in your packet.
Okay, okay.
Thank
I guess I'll just let you know when maybe we can get coordinated with Judge Patey being here and present that at the same time then.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else, any other council person need to present proposed legislation? All right, if not, we have no departmental reports this afternoon. We do have two committees. We have Parks and Public Works, and we do have Planning and Zoning. Councilman Hester, are you ready for Parks and Public Works at this time?
Welcome to Parks and Public Works. Can we approve the minutes? Okay. Madam Clerk, can you read Resolution 7C, please?
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to award contract CSOTF improvement project numbers W18007, W18004, and W19011, a consent decree project to Ruby Collins, Inc. of Smyrna, Georgia, in the contract amount of $9,364,073, plus a contingency amount of $936,400 for an amount not to exceed $10,300,473.
See no hands. We have ordinance on the first read, 6 for transportation.
An ordinance closing and abandoning an unopened alley in the 1400 block of Cemetery Avenue as detailed on the attached map, subject to certain conditions.
Can you read G, please? I see no hands.
An ordinance closing and abandoning an unopened alley in the 2000 block of Museum Street as detailed on the attached map, subject to certain conditions.
Okay. Can you read 7I, please?
A resolution to approve the payment of an invoice for software used by WRD for hydraulic modeling of the sanitary sewer collection system in order to meet requirements of the consent decree in the amount of $25,571.
Thank you. J, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to enter into agreement with Shift Transit for the operation of the Bike Chattanooga system on behalf of the city of Chattanooga for a 1-year renewal at no cost to the city per resolution number 29223.
Okay, I see a hand. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Chairman, for the recognition. Donald, going back to is that an invoice, sanitary sewer collection? Is that an invoice? Yes, I see the word invoice for Innovize. I'm just can you give me just a little background on that one?
At this particular time, it's a service that we use that went over the $25,000 limit. So we have to bring it in front of council. for
Okay, so it's just
approval.
that it met that threshold.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then that works. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any further questions, Councilman Ledford? You good? Okay, okay. Okay, now we get to the Parks Acts ordinance. Something was raised by Councilwoman Coonrod on last week. And I think we have Jason ready for us unless Chief's coming up for Jason.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do we have any questions related to this ordinance? Oh. Go ahead. Chief.
There we go. Hey, thank you, Mr. Chair. I personally would like to hear from the sponsor of this, what this ordinance does and kind of what her thinking about bringing it forward is.
Councilwoman Coonrod, can you elaborate?
You'll have to.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Great question, Chip. I was waiting on somebody to ask me that. But and this was actually related, you know, I put it on myself for my area with the YFD sites is that we had a shooting that had a baby in the car. That the baby didn't get shot, but the two individuals in the car did. And I thought about like what's happening within different communities and mostly at our YFD sites with that type of violence that's taking place. What measures can we put in place to prevent that from happening? And so as I researched, I saw that, hey, they have prohibited acts as far as with our parks. And since a presentation that was previously given to council, our YFD sites were considered to be parks. And since it was an ordinance, so language already in, I thought it'd be great to just add that in there outside of just creating a total different ordinance, just for it to act alone, which may be best. And Brandon and I had talked about that. But most definitely want to reduce the violence, want to have some kind of signage put up so people can see it. So it'll be a detractor for people to come and commit those crimes on city property. It also provides a safety net to protect our people, kids, teenagers, youth, seniors, so they'll feel safe, more of a safeguard for those areas. I had previously spoken with our district attorney, and in order for him to create like safety zones in that, injunctions or anything like that, it's more so targeting gang members. So I didn't want to just, target gang members because it's all kind of people that get in criminal activity, and most definitely didn't make it a race issue. So because it's all kind of people that's involved in violent acts. And so it just serves as an extra layer of protection for our citizens. And they already know firsthand, you come on this property, you pulling out guns, you brandishing guns, and you're shooting at people on this property. We've already warned you. And then, of course, as I spoke about it earlier, there are added penalties if with this the constitutional to carry. If you're a convicted felon or so on and so forth, it enhances, your charges and your time that you may or may not be given. Now, so I just wanted really to serve as a detractor to keep people from committing acts as such.
Thank you, Councilwoman. We have some hands. Chip Ennis.
Thanks, sir. So did I hear you or understand you correct? Does this create a safety zone that would prohibit gang members from entering this particular legislation, or? Oh, okay. Well, and I'm all for creating safe zones, safe places for kids especially. And this may be a question for the chief, I don't know. Is there any, I don't know that there's a difference, but is there any difference in the fact that this is taking a parks ordinance and applying it to community center ordinance or a rec center ordinance? You know, and does it apply? I'm assuming it would apply to ball fields, wherever, yada, yada.
It's a great question, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you.
So Councilwoman Coonrod and I talked about this very same thing earlier today. I do think it makes sense. I mean, I completely understand where Councilwoman Coonrod is going with this and having safety guidelines in place. You know, the parks ordinance already has certain things spelled out, like you can't carry a gun, you can't build a fire, you know, et cetera. There's, I don't know, 8 or 10 things spelled out in what you can't do in a park. I do think applying the parks ordinance as written to recreational facilities such as Warner Park, Summit of Softball, and the Champions Club probably makes sense. And then those, you know, if it needs to be spelled out in there, it could be. It could say, right now it says parks and playgrounds. It could say parks, playgrounds, and recreational facilities. However, the administration does believe that it would be better if we do a separate ordinance for community centers, which applies to both indoors and outdoors at each community center. So it would be the rules and regulations, general safety rules and regulations that apply, you know, to the community centers themselves. And that could include posting signage in parking lots and different things like this. But I would also defer to the city attorney somewhat on this to see if there's an existing ordinance, we could put it in that's more related to community centers versus parks. But I do think that we should be able to find somewhere to put this or create a new section if needed. But we're not
So-
opposed to the safety guidelines in general. I do think that it should be separated from the parks ordinance.
So if I understand you correctly, you're saying we probably need two ordinance. One is the Parks ordinance, the Parks Act ordinance that sort of expands the scope of language, but then a separate community or recreational centers ordinance.
I believe so.
that
Unless
could
there's
live
something,
somewhere
unless
else, or-
there's something in the existing code that we could piggyback on for community centers, just like we're doing for parks.
Mhm.
Off the top of my head, I can't think of anything. I mean, we obviously have rules at our community centers to say you can't bring guns inside, but I'm not sure that that's actually in the code anywhere. I mean, we need to research that to see if it is, and if it is, we could expand upon the language in that section versus the parks section.
Okay,
Are you good?
thank you, sir.
Councilman Darren left.
Thank you, Chairman, for the recognition. So I think the councilwoman's intent on this is spot on. I do think it needs to probably live as a separate ordinance outside of the Parks Act ordinance. I'm interested in knowing, and I'm all for signs as a printing company owner. I mean, I look out here and I see about $500 worth. Signs, we didn't make them, just for the record. Can't do that, but my point is a sign going to keep folks from carrying guns and shooting at people? Probably not. Would this ordinance have or address any type of, talking to the district attorney, increased criminal penalty for crimes committed on these properties? Is that a conversation that could possibly be opened with the district attorney? And that's the rhetorical question, Councilwoman. But I do think that you're on the right track for this, and I would like to see further discussion on this. And I'm no law expert, but I think that what you're trying to do is definitely something I could support, probably as a separate ordinance, though. I think that was a good recommendation. So I'll leave it there, and I thank you, Chairman, for the time.
Okay. Councilwoman Coonrod.
I agree. We could do the separate ordinance. I support that if the city attorney, she wouldn't mind drafting it in that way. And I would love for you to be a part of the conversation, Darren, with the district attorney. Maybe we can invite him, Chair, to come and address those concerns about what that would look like. I bug him all the time. It'll be good to give him some extra mouth from others.
You good, Councilwoman?
Unless he's been mowing.
Councilman Anthony Byrd.
Thank you. And Chief, I would also, I agree with Councilwoman Coonrod and her ordinance. I think it's something amazing. Is it possible to speak with Chief Tucker and other police officers to create a stronger presence at our YFD centers? Especially I can speak for Carver Center in Avondale. Just yesterday, I was outside of Avondale Center at 10 o'clock at night. It was probably 50 kids out there, teenagers. A lot of them was playing ball because the centers are closed, but they were out there on the court playing ball and just hanging out on the picnic area. And the whole time I'm sitting there looking at them, I'm thinking, if a gun get pulled out, or if another group that doesn't like this group, or a person that don't like that person show up, I don't care what signs you have or what happened, it's going to be an issue. So enforcement's always an issue with us. And I would like to see once this legislation is passed, that we talk with the police department about maybe in those safe zones, especially in some high crime areas, that they can make their presence a little bit more known, during the late hours when the kids are out there still playing basketball or hanging out.
Yeah, yes, sir. And I don't want to speak for Chief Tucker, but I can certainly talk to him about strategies for us to have increased patrol around community centers, especially those that may be in higher crime areas. One thing I'll mention, I believe that this legislation Councilwoman Coonrod's proposing includes something, well, if it's separate, I think it'll be included in the separate ordinance. The parks ordinance includes a curfew for the parks that's separate from the citywide curfew. Now, obviously, we don't have a bunch of people going around and enforcing curfew, right? I mean, it's we do enforce it when there's some other activity happening that we can use the curfew as a tool to enforce. But I do think we could establish some sort of curfew for the outside of the community centers, because obviously they close at a certain time. Kids go outside, congregate in the parking lots. We could create some sort of curfew for that property as well. Not that we're going to have someone enforcing it 24/7, but it would give us an opportunity to have the police department perhaps schedule some patrols during that time for certain centers to help disperse crowds, or, help people move along back home. If that's helpful. I mean, I definitely think we can have some conversations with the police department about the best way to approach that.
I guess our next step is to allow the city attorney to rework this ordinance for us.
I think all of section 26 could use a do-over. All of the YFDs and curfews, all under parks, but it's a little bit unclear. And what I have heard without fail from the administration and from all 9 council members is that we want our code to be clear and usable for our citizens. So there are several outdated provisions there, like it's unlawful to use a seat or a swing that's designated for a woman or child. That's not a thing anymore. So I think that it would be really a good use of time to figure out how to make these things clear, so that everyone knows what is and is not permissible at each location.
Councilman Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. And I just wanted to add on to what Councilman Byrd was saying, is that with our parks, all of them except for Coolidge Park, you have to be attended, be supervised after 6 o'clock at Coolidge Park. So it's the same thing. I think that should be at our YFD site, any of our other parts, because we have to have supervision. That was part of the ordinance, to put it back on the parents to have some kind of responsibility, because and I know we dance around the issue, but we got to start talking about it, because when we have kids involved in, illegal activity, criminal activity, the first thing our community says is that, oh, council members and the mayor, you all need to do something about this. Well, if the parents aren't assuming responsibility for their kid, like we're just saying, make sure that you know where your kid is at. Have them in the house at a reasonable time. If these are school age kids, that's social emotional learning. They need to be well, fed. They need to be rested. Should be ready to execute their very best the very next day. And if we're afraid to say to parents, like, hey, these kids are your responsibility, we need to reevaluate government at this point, because it's only so much that we can do. And we got these, laws and ordinance, they're in place for a reason. And I think to me, it sounds like it's simple to tell a parent to do. I mean, back when I was growing up, we knew when the street lights came on, we needed to be in the house. We needed to be on the porch. We've gotten away from that. And you got 10-year-olds roaming the streets with crack and, doing all kind of stuff. And we're saying we don't want the police to approach them because we're afraid that, race is going to play a factor in that. Well, we no longer can afford to do that. We got to get a grip on it, and we got to do the right thing when it comes to these kids.
And Councilman Ledford.
Chairman, I have a totally different question when the time is appropriate.
Okay. This is time.
The time is appropriate. Thank you. Chief, sorry, this one's not for you. This is for Mr. Stone.
Excellent.
All right. Very good. Hey, Donald, I appreciate you taking my call or calling me back the other day. I was wondering if you could update us a little bit about the recycling pickup. Was it that last week or this week, the one time?
It's for the duration of this week.
Duration
During
of this week.
That is
Yeah.
correct, during the normal collection day for garbage.
Okay, and folks need to put out the recycling next to
Put out
their-
both carts.
on the day
yeah,
their normal trash is
on their
picked up.
normal day of collection. Yes, sir.
Okay, I had a lot of questions on that and I appreciate you answering them. I think we got it cleared away through the Nextdoor app, but anything you want to add to that?
Yes, sorry for any confusion on the information leak, but hopefully folks will know that we still have the centers open to continue to bring those recyclables, and it also allows us to sell those commodities easier because they're not as contaminated.
Sure. Have we extended any of the hours on the current locations? I know
Yes.
I had inquired about that in District 4 at Battery Place, a little longer hours maybe. Have we?
Yes, all of the collection centers have been extended, especially on weekends.
Very good. And the response that I got on Nextdoor was actually overwhelming, that people were going to actually hold it for a little while because they wanted to see it recycled properly. And I believe that's the proper spirit. And I appreciate folks taking on that attitude. I think it was really great to hear and see on the social media site for once.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you.
Chairman, thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any more questions regarding parks and public works? Okay, let me turn it over to Planning and Zoning Committee. Thank you.
Tennessee zoning handbook. Good reading if in case anybody needs to fall asleep. We got a copy of it up here. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Planning and Zoning. I would like to ask for a motion to approve the minutes. We have a motion and a second. Without objection, we'll let the minutes stand. Karen, how are you today?
Good, thank you.
Good. Are you excited for Planning and Zoning?
I am, and I'm going to be succinct.
Very good. Let's get to it. We have ordinances on a final read this evening, but I don't see Dr. Burrs here, so we will move over item A. I believe the conditions were accepted by the applicant last week, so I think our bases are covered there. Moving on to next week, Tuesday, September 14th, on ordinances on first reading. You want to take us through case A, please?
Yes, and I'll ask if the presentation can be put up on the screen, please. Okay, well, I will.
You can go ahead and start without
Go
it,
ahead and
'cause-
start. So the first case is on Jenkins Road. It's a rezoning to RTZ Residential Townhouse Zone. And this is for there is an accompanying PUD for this. And it is 5.8 dwelling units an acre at 7.6 acres. There is an RTZ zone just north of this. And then just north of that is another RTZ zone. So there's already precedent for that zoning along Jenkins Road. The Hamilton Place Plan, which is being updated as we speak, doesn't define low-density residential in a range, but it does define medium density. And staff felt that the proposal for townhouses with a density of 5.8 dwelling units an acre is compatible with the plan. There's attached single family to the north, single family detached uses to the south, and then a church just east across Jenkins Road. So Planning Commission and staff had similar points and recommendations. There was no opposition, and both staff and Planning Commission found that the request is compatible with the plan, surrounding land uses and development form, and it's an extension of the existing zone and recommended to approve, limited to a density of 5.8 dwelling units an acre. And there is a PUD under resolutions that accompanies this that was also recommended for approval with no opposition.
Very good. Thank you for that overview. This is in District 4, and we did hold a community meeting the Sunday prior to Planning Commission on this particular case and had a lot of questions. A lot of folks showed up, and I appreciate the applicant and the engineer being there to answer questions. There were certain conditions on this particular case, and I believe there's no opposition from the applicant on those conditions. I'm getting a head nod from the engineer, so we will then move on to the next case as I see no lights.
Okay.
B, please.
This is case 2021-124. This is property at the, southeast corner of Gun Barrel and Pinewood. This is across from the commercial zoning of Waterside. And there's an R3 zoning to the north. I believe it's Springs at Chattanooga apartment complex. This also is for it's a multifamily townhouse style development. And it also has an accompanying PUD under the resolutions. The density is at 10.5 dwelling units an acre. It's mostly undeveloped, again, with the institutional and commercial to the west, and that is not fully developed. The Waterside is not fully developed. There is a mix of zoning in the area. There's some RT1 and RTZ rezonings to the south. Just north, I mentioned that 2009 rezoning to R3, and there were substantial conditions related to that. This density that's proposed is a little higher than that identified in the plan, but staff acknowledged that the precedent set by that rezoning just north to the apartment complex, just north of Pinewood, did set a precedent, and that limiting the density to 10.5 dwelling units an acre would help this remain compatible. So Planning Commission and staff had similar thoughts on this. There was opposition with emails, 3 emails regarding a need for landscape buffering, concerns about stormwater, and just a note about the need for a turning lane onto Gun Barrel from Pinewood. Planning Commission and staff both found the request is compatible with the plan with the limited density, compatible with development form, and is noted the precedent that's already set for the apartment complex on Pinewood. So the recommendation with approval with condition is shown there and includes the density, maximum height of 2.5 stories or 35 feet, 25-foot landscape buffer along the shared property lines abutting R1, and a minimum building setback of 40 feet from Remington Court. And that's the small cul-de-sac street just east of this development. And then I believe Councilman Ledford's had some additional comments, I believe, with the applicant in opposition in this case.
Very good. Thank you, Karen. So this case obviously is in District 4 as well, as Karen mentioned. We had a great community meeting at the YMCA for this particular case, and I appreciate my residents coming out and participate. Appreciate the engineers. And we do have probably a couple of issues we'd like to work through. So Karen, you may see, as I'm able to work with the engineer on this project this week, you may see an alternate version.
Okay.
Before we get to the Tuesday, first reading. And that's addressing some of the concerns or the opposition that was presented. And in addressing some of the opposition, CDOT did recommend, I believe, not to put a turning lane and access onto Pinewood. And I think that was a good call. So there's some things we're working through, but I think that we might have an alternate version to present for next Tuesday's first reading. We've got a couple of hurdles I think we need to work through.
Okay, I'll look for that language. Thank you.
And I am seeing no lights from the council, Karen, so I think they're going to let me probably field that one on my own.
Okay.
So, moving on.
The next case is 2021-131. This is 6C on the agenda. This is a rezoning to UGC for property located on Cemetery Avenue. This is just north of Main Street at the intersection with Central. It's for commercial uses in 3 townhomes. That density with the 3 townhomes is 10.7 units an acre. There's the UGC zoning to the west, to the south, and just to the east down Main Street from the site. Uses around, there is quite a mix of uses. There's warehousing to the north, single family attached and commercial to the west, commercial and vacant property to the south. And then to the east, there's single family detached, and the applicant in one of those homes did provide an email letter in opposition. There's as mentioned, there's just some a pattern set for UGC rezoning in the area just south of the property, a 2016 rezoning to UGC with conditions. And then farther down Main Street to the east, 2019 rezoning to UGC with conditions. This property is in the historic River to Ridge Area 3 plan that was adopted last year. And it identifies this area as a neighborhood node, and noted basically that the proposal for mixed use development is compatible with adopted plan goals. So another one where there was staff and planning commission had similar thoughts on this. Planning commission and staff findings noted it's compatible with the plan and surrounding land uses and development form in this area. So planning commission recommendation is to approve with a condition, a 10-foot landscape buffer. This got refined at planning commission based on some discussion with the applicant. That doesn't include a Bell South easement. So basically buffering and then kind of working around that. And then prohibition against adult-oriented uses, self-service storage, wholesaling, some of those higher intensity uses.
Very good. Councilman Byrd? I think I see your light, sir.
Thank you. Did you have a street view of that?
I do. And I've got one.
That place there. Okay.
I know that building.
That's the old alternative place. Okay, thank you.
You good, Councilman?
Yes, sir.
Fantastic. Thank you, Karen. Item D, please. Seeing no other lights.
Okay, this is case 121, and this is in Eastdale. This property is just to orient you, is east of Tunnel, south of Wilcox. So it does have frontage on 3 streets, 3 Street, Hoyt, and Gillespie. We're going to request to rezone from R1 to R3. There are multiple properties here. The applicant would like to develop 5 single-family homes, 2 duplexes, and 2 townhomes for a density of 4.5 dwelling units an acre. There's no reason, most of the surrounding property is R1. The nearest R3 to this site is along Wilcox, and that was rezoned in 72. But the predominant zoning in this area is R1, with the predominant land uses being single-family detached. So the Eastdale Plan, which is a much older plan, doesn't have specific land use recommendations in it. The way it was developed, it does have a series of goals. 2 probably of note here, maintaining Eastdale's residential character, and that new development should be designed to fit in with the scale of the neighborhood. Staff noted that the proposal could meet these goals, but because of a lack of a little bit more specificity, it was kind of hard to determine to address the compatibility. So staff noted that we are supportive of that mix of housing and providing affordable housing as proposed by the applicant, but was concerned with introducing that high density R3 zone into the single family neighborhood without a clear policy. recommending for it. So we did some math and we determined the applicant could subdivide the parcels into 5 single-family lots to provide housing, and that would be under the existing zoning, and then noted that the RT zone might be another RTZ zone might be a zone that would work because it allows single-family detached and attached housing similar to the mix the applicant was proposing, but overall staff recommended denial and added those as notes. There was opposition at Planning Commission, just concern about the high-density multifamily zone not being appropriate for the area. Planning Commission did find that the RTZ would be a more appropriate zone in recommending denying the applicant's request of R3 and approving the RTZ. So I think just to note that the RTZ does allow some of those mix of uses and is a good balance between compatibility with existing residential, but allowing a little bit of a mix in that area.
Very good. Thank you, Karen. Let me add real quick before I go to Councilwoman Coonrod is one of the processes we like to use at Planning Commission when we see a denial is to work one-on-one with an applicant literally from the dais. And that's this is a perfect example of walking through that explanation. And it can be very cumbersome for folks going through the zoning process. And I think that we had a great conversation, I believe, with Mrs. Brown. And she agreed to the RTZ zoning. And I think that was very well presented by the Planning Commission in finding a solution. And with that, I'd like to yield to Councilwoman Coonrod if she has anything to add.
Development happening with the 4 closing of grocery stores in this community. The number one concern has been disposable income, and we don't have enough density. And so I think that it's time for, the community to take a look at how we want the community to really look so it can support the businesses that they want to attract to the area. And so multifamily is most definitely needed because it gives a variety of people. Our community most definitely is changing. It's not a predominantly Black neighborhood anymore. And we need to be able to cater to the community, a community that will be most definitely diverse. I'm a champion for that. So I did speak with the Brown family, so they are on board with RTZ. I'm hopeful that, in the future, we will be able to get R3 zoning in that community so we can get more housing options for people because everybody doesn't want to live in just a single family home. People don't want to always be a homeowner, so it needs to be a variety of options. So I'm excited about it. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you for your comments and your support, Councilwoman. All right, Karen, we're moving on through to item E, please.
Okay, case 139 is a rezoning to, it's a multiple properties, 28 acres of properties in Ridgedale. This is the SCT mill site that has been before you before, rezoning from R2, C2, and C3 with conditions to C3. So just a reminder while we're here is that a couple months ago, council amended the C3 zone to remove some of the conflicts that we were finding with other sections of the code and the conditions that normally went around along with C3, and also to have standards for planned urban developments. So this is the first case that is being, that we've had a rezoning request for. So the applicant, there's 31 parcels that are part of this. 26 of those are currently zoned C3 with conditions. So those would be rezoned from and getting rid of those conditions and going to the new zone that has the development standards related to kind of listed there: setbacks, height, building standards, parking access, landscaping, and transitional standards. So the applicant does have to provide a site utilization plan as part of this. And on the site utilization plan, the applicant has to propose uses and maximum building heights. And the conditions that go along with the recommendation reflect the uses and heights provided by the applicant. So I won't go into detail, but the uses, some are more defined as residential use only, some are more of a mix with some uses prohibited. But those are shown on the site utilization plan, as well as the height requirements are showing maximum building height and what areas those apply.
Very good.
So just briefly, the plan has multiple place types, the Historic River to Ridge Area Plan. And just noting that those areas that are not C3, we have 4 of them are areas that seemed reasonable to expand C3 and are compatible with the plan. And 1 is surrounded by manufacturing, was a reasonable location for C3. So we did discuss each of those individually in the staff recommendation, those that weren't zone C3, but overall they were felt appropriate for rezoning. Planning Commission also found that to be a reasonable request. There was no opposition. So the findings do align with staff and that it's compatible with the development form and with the adopted plan. And so the recommendation with those conditions, those are the ones that are shown on the site utilization plan related to uses.
Thank you, Karen. Councilman Coonrod, if I may, just for a second, this is a great example of utilizing the new C3 tool. And I'm really glad that we, as a council, also approve this tool into the opportunity zone, as well as I think we will see that tool used again, probably pretty soon, within the next 3 to 6 months. But it allows for flexibility and creativity in these developments that, quite frankly, no offense, we're not ready to handle. And I appreciate you all coming up with the tool, this council supporting the tool and seeing it, and especially Councilwoman Coonrod supporting the mill project for something that is just, I'm super excited, and I've said it from this dais many times, very excited for her and for the opportunities that project brings for her district. Councilwoman Coonrod.
Chair, you took the words right out of my mouth, man. I'm just.
That only happened once.
I know, right? I'm uber excited about this project happening, and I value Ethan Collier even more because he was willing to take a risk when no one else can even see it happening for this area. When you talk about this community, how it's very impoverished, and how, just this project is going to add to the quality of life for the people that's living there. It's just invaluable. Like, I can't wait for it to be completed, and because that whole area is going to transform to something different. I'm excited about it and looking forward to other opportunities as well. Thank you.
I think the benefit of the zone is that we don't have a mix of a mix of conditions that can be hard to enforce. We can have, one unified development. I think that's one of the benefits of that amendment.
Absolutely. Forward thinking, a big win for District 9. All right, Karen, we have a couple of resolutions. I believe we have some PUDs and a couple of SEPs to cover.
Right. So we have 2 residential PUDs. One is the Jenkins Road case. Again, that 5.8 dwelling units an acre. No opposition. Both Planning Commission and staff found this reasonable request at this location. And then the Pinewood Gun Barrel case is also a PUD. And it sounds like there might be either some revisions to this or the companion rezoning case.
We'll work hard this week to work through those.
And then ending with, there are 2 special exceptions permit for new liquor stores on your agenda.
Very good. Karen, you want to give us a quick update on our zoning assessment?
I can. I think that the last update we gave was at the budget hearing, and Councilman Ledford had asked how that was going. We're meeting this week to hopefully finalize action steps and the schedule. So hopefully I'll be able to give you an update at the next time we meet, or I can defer if anyone in the administration
I
wants
was
to
going
speak.
to ask, you took the words right out of my mouth. If Joe, do you want to give us a quick update on where the administration is?
Yes, absolutely. We are looking forward to being able to bring you the zoning code assessment very soon. The mayor had some feedback and we're finalizing some of that now. And as Karen mentioned, we're working through that this week, and we anticipate being able to bring you that in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
Or well, it may be a little longer than that, but soon, within the next 2 months.
I'm looking forward to it as well.
Yep.
Seeing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wink. All right. Thank you, Joda. All right. Council, any other business we need to cover today in planning and zoning? I know it's been great, efficient, quick meeting. Thank you all for your hard work. Karen, thank you and your staff.
Thank you.
If not, I will adjourn us until 6 o'clock, Chairman.